We are Comp229, Web Application Development, and it's week 4, part 2 of our video series. Today we're connecting to MongoDB with Mongoose, which is an Npm package we're going to go over. So the technical requirements haven't changed. You still need to have Visual Studio Code, get Node.js and MongoDB installed. From a knowledge requirements perspective, still basic Mongo commands as well as some of the other stuff from the previous videos. What I'm hoping for you guys today is we're going to connect to a Mongo database with an Npm package named Mongoose. We're going to talk about how to do that, and we need to restructure our application just a little bit in order for us to do that. At the end of the video, you should have an understanding of how to connect to a local MongoDB database with Mongoose Npm package. Let's see how that works. So Mongoose is just that, an Npm package. We're going to connect to it just like this, and we're going to, when we get started, if you look at the Getting Started guide, it actually talks about how to install Mongoose and how to connect it to your app.js. Let's step through it. So let's leave these windows up. This is from our MongoDB video. We're going to leave these windows up as well as this. I want to be able to access our Mongo database if we need to check to see if we're getting the right data. Let's pull up our application where we left it the last time. I'm just going to close off all these documents for now. Alright, so one thing we're going to need is a space where we're going to hold our connection string. We can certainly put our connection string to the Mongo database in our app.js, which is our manifest, but then it'll appear on the front page here. And I'd like to extrapolate this out or abstract it out so you can't see it as easily. So one of the things I'd like to do is create a config folder for us to do this with. So we're going to modify our configuration files just a little bit. How does this work? I'm going to go to our framework, and you notice I haven't changed the name of our files yet. Actually, maybe that's a really good thing to do, change the name of our files. And I'm just going to press Control Backtick first, stop our server. This is our server locally. You can see also there's another PowerShell in here as well. And let's just exit Visual Studio Code for a second while we correct our files, our file structure, just for 1 sec. I'd like to do this because I think it's an important step in that we want to organize ourselves for the next part. And we also want to keep a history of what we're doing here locally as we're not using Git and GitHub right now. So I'm going to take this and copy it and paste it into our folder. You can see it takes a long time, and you're going to say to yourself, why is it taking so long to copy a local file and folder? Because of the hundreds of files that come with node modules. The node modules folder is full, and that's why a lot of times we don't put node modules up on GitHub. So here we're going to say week 4. I think probably is the best way. We're going to continue this example throughout week 4. So I'm not going to make it any parts. There we go. Now I'm going to drag and drop week 4 into Visual Studio Code, just like we've done in the past. Alright, now we're ready to go. So here in week 4, we don't have anything running right now, so no server running except for Mongo. I'm going to right click on week 4, and what I want to do is I want to add in a new folder. So right at the top level, right here. We're going to call this folder config. This is our configuration folder. We're going to have our files that are our configuration files we don't want to expose necessarily in our app.js, right? Eventually we'll even put our app.js in there, because even that shouldn't be exposed. The only thing that we should really see on the front end is just our server.js. In fact, we can probably do that now. When we move our app.js over into our config folder, what's going to happen is a lot of our connections that we have right now to our other folders need to be updated. So that's the first thing we want to do. Let's move app.js into our config folder now. So I'm going to drag and drop into our config folder, app.js. And it says, do you want to move it? I want to say yes. Now, unfortunately, what it hasn't done this time, it hasn't asked me to update our connections. So a lot of this stuff is wrong, right? We're going to go through one at a time and correct this first. And then, after we're running again, we're going to create our little connection string for Mongoose. Alright, so that's our first step. So the first thing is, this is wrong. So // means in the same folder. So routes is definitely not in the same folder. It's up one and then down into routes. So this will be //. So this is something we have to update. Okay. Same thing with views. So set views, path join the name views. Well, that views is not also in the main folder. It's up one and down into views. So views, right? View engine EJS is cool. Public is also up one and down into public. Same thing with node modules, right? Into node modules as well. Users, this is just routing, so this doesn't change. Nothing has changed here. Okay. So far so good. Our app.js looks like it's pretty good. We've just updated the pathing for some of these things. We'll see if this works out later on. Next is inside of our server.js. Server.js right now is pointing to ./app. Well, that would be in the same folder, but it's not in there. App is actually inside of config, so we're going to say ./config/app. So we're going to just change the location of our application from our server.js. And if we just scroll down, I just want to make sure that nothing else has changed. Looks like we're pretty good, right, overall. This is great, and this is a great start, but now we have to test it. So I'm going to just save this, close this off, and I'm also going to close this off for now and press Control backtick, where I'm going to just do a node mod. And if everything goes well, then we should have no errors. Let's see how that looks on our page. Do we see our pages coming up? And that's kind of important. If I refresh now, we shouldn't have any problems. We should be able to navigate from one page to the other, and everything is great. And we should have feedback about what's happening here down here. So we know that the changes that we've made to app.js are good. So again, app.js is moved out of the root and into config. Why? It's a configuration file. It's a manifest for the entire application. Whereas server.js is just our entry point into our application. Okay, let's go back into our app.js now, and I want to add another connection, which is going to be a DB. We want a DB configuration, a database configuration. So in here, I want to go and add a new file this time. We're going to call this db.js, and we're going to use our module syntax that we had for Node. Module syntax looks like this: module.exports. So we want to attach to the exports bag. Think about this as a container. The exports container, I want to connect a something. I could connect a function. I could connect a variable. I could connect an object, which is what we're going to do. So we're going to connect an object. The object is going to look like this. Okay, we're going to have inside of our object, we're going to have a property called URI. Okay, and our URI is going to be the following: MongoDB, right, is going to be the access, // followed by localhost, or 127.0.0.1 if you wish. You can put that in there. Followed by the name of the database we're connecting to. We're connecting to book_store. Okay? And then that's it. There's no semicolon required because this is a URI. Okay, so module exports and the URI. We can change this URI later on for something that's online, but for now, this is going to be our URI that we're going to use for a local Mongo database. Great, so that's our URI. Let's go back to app.js. Now we need to set up Mongoose. Now that we have our database connection string, we need to set up all the requirements, the logic to connect to it. Let's open up a new terminal window. So again, plus. And just like we've done before, I'm just going to do a Npm Install Mongoose -- save. So Mongoose is our package that we're going to use to connect. And if it can't find Mongoose, right, it's going to give us an error just like this. It says, all right, so it says we're trying to find a package called Mongoose. The operation is not permitted. As an example, it's trying to find something was rejected by your operating system. It is possible that the file was already in use by a text or something else, right? It's possible. Or it's also possible we put the wrong connection in there. Let's take a look. That's probably more likely. Like we put something that's wrong. And sometimes you get those kind of errors. So the way to do that is to take a look. Npm Install Mongoose. Okay, Npm Install Mongoose is what we want. So that's the thing that caused us the issue. So let's copy that. Go back to our, and put that in, and then -- save. All right, so we're still having that problem. It says, but notice that this time around, when we did npm install mongoose, it worked. Probably because something I put in here may have been wrong. I'm not sure what I typed in. It looks okay to me, but the second time I did it, it looked perfect, and it looks like this is what we were expecting. 0 vulnerabilities means there's no problems with the package. So sometimes it happens. All right, now that we have Mongoose, we can check for it. We can go into Node Modules. We can scroll down. You can see that Mongoose is indeed installed, as well as inside of our package.json file, you can see that Mongoose is now a dependency. There it is, 5.10.2 as of this recording. Okay, that's great. So now what we want to do is we want to update our config. So we go to app.js and we want to configure this thing. It's the next part. It's not as scary as it looks. We just have to do our first configuration change for this altogether. And what I want to do is I want to set up some commenting here. So here we're going to say our database setup. This is where it's going to be in our app.js. Let me just close this off now because we don't need this. So the first part is Mongoose. So let Mongoose equal to require and then Mongoose. Notice that if it comes up with code hinting, that's a good indicator that the package has been installed properly. Okay, so Mongoose connects us to Mongoose. Excellent. Next, let DB, our database connection, equal to require and then / again, if you think about this, it's on the same level. db.js is what we want, right? db.js. So if I just did this, that should be enough. We don't have to use we don't have to include the .js in here, just like we didn't do it for index and users or anything else on here. We can omit using this. So now if I hover over, you can see that I actually get code hinting that db represents the object, and URI is what I can use for my connection string. Okay, let's do the next part. So let's point Mongo. So let's do this. So the next one is point Mongoose to the DB URI. That's the next part we want to do. And we're going to say mongoose.connect. We're going to use a connect object. And we're going to go db.uri. So that connects us to Mongo. All right, that's what it does. Mongo database locally. And the next part is after we've connected, we want to check to see when we're connected. We want to be able to get almost create an event to see when we're connected to the Mongo database. So we're going to say let MongoDB, right? MongoDB equal to the Mongoose connection, mongoose.connection, all right? And we're going to say MongoDB.on. On is like add event listener. On error, if we have an error with connection, we want to do a console.error. We want to send a error to the console. And we want to bind the console so that it says some kind of connection error. That's what we want to kind of specify. Okay, a connection error. And I think that's pretty important to do it that way. Followed by MongoDB dot once. So only want to do this once. We want to, when it's open, we have an open connection. We want to create an event with a inline event handler that's going to show us console log connected to MongoDB. And why do we do this? Because this is going to guarantee that if we have a connection to the Mongo database, we're going to see it in the console as it comes in. We'll actually see it next to NodeMon. Okay, so that's really the most of it in terms of connecting to Mongo, at least at this level. So the first part is, can we connect to MongoDB? Right? That's the first part, and that's what we're doing here in this video. So I'm going to save this. And if I go back out to our control backtick now, and if I go back to our node, we can see simply that we're connected, but we have a deprecation warning. The deprecation warning says that we have a problem with our code. This is coming right from our database online. Let's take a look and see what how things have been updated. So here is, we require Mongoose. We did a connection just like we did before. And then it says use URL parser true in the connect. Use URL parser true. So let's put that in there. That's one thing we missed. That's part of it. So it's asking that for us. Actually, it's right here. Look, it says pass option new URL parser true to the Mongo client connect, which is what's happening when we do this. So paste and save. And now we can see that that part's gone, but we have another one. A use pass option use unified topology true to the Mongo client constructor. Right? So again, a connect constructor, Mongo client constructor. Okay, so let's try this out again. It probably is something we want to add in there. Let's take a look and see if there's another deprecation warning online and see if it's an issue. All right, so this is one, and we're going to scroll down and see if there's anything else in their documentation that tells us this. It doesn't look to be, but I don't like deprecation warnings. Me personally, I think it's a negative. So let's try to see if we can figure it out on our own. It happens sometimes. So let's take this use unified topology option, and we'll put this as an additional option in here. Use unified topology true. And we'll go into here, and we'll put it in. Let's see if that solves it. And we're good. Right? So that's pretty good. These two are the new things we need. I guess from a security standpoint, if you hover over, it says flag for using new server discovery and monitoring engine instead of current deprecated one. I think this is a really great way of doing it. And here it says flag using new URL string parser instead of the current deprecated one. That's pretty good. Okay, so that's the way we can fix. So now we have a great connection. We have a good connection to MongoDB locally, except we haven't really done anything. This is just connecting to MongoDB. That's what this thing was all about. Okay. Okay. And we also reconfigured our application a little bit. We hid our app.js inside of our config folder, which is the right thing to do, right? Later on, what we're going to do is we're going to take this entire folder, this entire thing, and hide it inside of a server folder, which makes sense, right? And the reason for this is because we really only just want to see our server.js, and we want to hide everything that we don't need to see inside of another container, so we can kind of put this away for our users. Okay, this is great. So that's it for this video. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to do a basic read operation. We're going to be able to read something, and we're going to be able to read a list of books from the database is what I want to do. And we're going to create, to do that, in order for us to do that, we're going to create a Mongo or a Mongoose schema. We're going to talk about schemas in a bit and how to connect. So we're just going to do a read operation this week. Okay, that's it for me, and we'll see.